All right, it'll be a very abbreviated headline segment today, and an abbreviated show because I have to make the walk over to the set to start our inauguration coverage. Also, nobody's watching this show today because everyone's watching the inauguration coverage, which is fine. I get it. You know, I don't hold it against you. Anyway, yes, we are in DC right now, so which explains the different set behind me, and it's been a pretty interesting experience, very surreal. The whole city is shut down. You know, all the streets around the hotel where we're staying are closed off. You know, so you go outside. There are no cars driving around. You got to walk through checkpoints and everything. And you know, I've never been in DC at the time of inauguration before. I've heard that this is the level of security is ramped up considerably from previous years. I don't know if that's the case or not. And meanwhile, all the people who are in town right now are conservatives, you know, MAGA people for the inauguration. So, which is also a bit surreal. Everywhere I go, I'm running into people who are fans of the Daily Wire, which is great. But it's a very different vibe from what you're used to when you go to DC. And by the way, for those who have wondered, you know, I mentioned these fancy balls and dinners and things that I'm going to, and I shared with you my deep concern, my deep worry that the fancy balls would get in the way of watching the Ravens game on Sunday night. And fortunately, we went to the one last night, and actually it was Brett Cooper's husband who had the game on his phone. So I stood and watched the rest of the game on the phone and at the ball. And, you know, we lost. So I don't really want to talk about it. The Ravens lost. 2-point conversion dropped at the end of the game. Absolute dagger. So now I'm standing there in my tuxedo and everyone is celebrating and in a great mood. And I understand, but I've just suffered this great trauma and I have to walk around and talk to people and act happy for the rest of the night. And it was tough. It was tough to put on a brave face, but you do what you have to do. And the other thing too is that when you go to these things, the music is so loud that you can't understand what anyone is saying. So I'm having, you know, I probably had 300 conversations with people, and I have no idea what was said on the other end of the conversation. So they're saying something in a muffled voice because I can't hear because of the music. And my response is always, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was agreeing to things all night, and I don't know what I agreed to. For all I know, people were coming up to me and say, hey, what do you think I sneak into your hotel room tomorrow night and murder you in your sleep? Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. That's the way it goes. But it was a great event. It was a great event. And things are not so great for our friends on the left, though, which leads us to this one headline that I wanted to read because this is the last day that it'll be even remotely relevant. This is from the Daily Wire. Protesters at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. argue that Donald Trump presents a serious threat to women's rights and American freedoms, but failed to provide concrete examples of how the president-elect will actually do that. The Daily Wire attended the Women's March on Saturday morning in the nation's capital, where thousands of anti-Trump and left-leaning protesters gathered to voice their opinions on a wide variety of topics: Trump himself, abortion, transgender issues, immigration, climate change, and more. I just want to play you some of the conversation that the Daily Wire reporters had with the women who were at the Women's March. You might not even have known that there was another Women's March. I'm in D.C., and I didn't know that it happened. It apparently happened not far from our hotel, and I had no idea that this was even going on, which gives you an idea of the size of this thing, which is that it was not very sizable at all. In 2016, they claimed that there was 1 million people who showed up. Reportedly, it drew 1 million people in 2017, in January of 2017. And I don't know if it was really 1 million. I think they probably inflated that number. But it was a lot. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people showed up in 2017 after Trump was sworn in, for the first Women's March. And it was a massive, massive outcry, right? And backlash against Trump's victory. This time, they drew, a few thousand. I mean, it had to be a tenth of what they had, maybe even less than that. So here are some of the conversations they had with these activists trying to explain why they were out protesting Trump. Watch.
How do you feel about Trump being inaugurated this weekend? I think that Trump is chaotic, and I have no idea what he really is doing. He's trying to keep the country in a bit of chaos, and this is one more thing to attack women. I am actually, I identify myself as worshiping Jesus, and I'm all about the fact that Jesus gave us all brains and hearts so that we can care for each other.
So what is your biggest concern about him becoming president? Is there a right that you're worried that he's going to take away from you?
The hateful speech that he promotes. It's disgusting. It disgusts me for my children and my grandchildren now, and it's disheartening to me as a woman and a person in this country. We should be better than that.
And you're here today, against patriarchy. A lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks. Be glad we want equality and not revenge. Oh my gosh, that scares me a little bit. Tell us about that. What does that mean?
Just, with all the things going on with Roe v. Wade, we just want that.
Can we ask you about your flag? Ask you? What does it say? Elect a clown, expect a circus. Tell us about this.
He was really disorganized coming in the first time, and it's all about fame and fortune for him, so I don't expect a lot of organization. I mean, he's got a few good people he's picked for his cabinet, but...
How do you feel about Donald Trump, and what are you worried about for this next administration?
I just don't like him as a person, and I feel like what he represents is not aligning with what we need for this country.
Yeah, low energy, I got to say. It's very low energy. And it really is fascinating because in 2016, again, there were hundreds of thousands of enraged protesters, people screaming in the streets and crying. And we all remember the now iconic, legendary figure of the woman on her knees screaming "no" into the sky, cursing the gods for having done this to her. And so far, nothing like that has happened in response to Trump's victory this time around. Now you have this small collection of people who seem like they showed up more out of a sense of obligation than out of actual passion, much less a real panic, So in 2016, it was, Donald Trump is a fascist dictator. He's going to enslave black people and women. He's going to destroy the world. And now, as we just heard, they're not saying that. Instead, they're saying, I think he's a bit disorganized. I think his organizational skills are not quite up to snuff. So the signs that they're carrying are the same. The signs, and the banners that they're marching under are just as strident as they've always been. But the people carrying the signs can't quite keep the act up. They've run out of steam. And I have to say that I'm surprised by that because I thought that there would be a nuclear explosion of feminist rage after Trump beat yet another female challenger. I was expecting a Chernobyl-level radioactive feminist meltdown on the left. And I think we all were. I think we all were expecting that. But so far, again, this could change. But so far, that just hasn't happened at all. And so then the question is, why not? And I think it's a really interesting question. Why haven't we seen this overwhelming outpouring of rage on the left at Trump? And mainly, I think it's exhaustion. I think that it's just not possible to sustain an emotional meltdown and a sense of chaotic panic for a full decade, because that's what we're looking at now. I mean, Trump came on the political scene in 2015, it's 2025 now. So now it's been a decade now, and it's just not possible to keep that going emotionally for 10 years. And this is the problem for the left, being an ideology that runs on emotion. The criticism of conservatives is that we put facts over feelings too much, that we don't connect on an emotional level with people enough, because for us, it's too much of just laying the facts out and shouting at you if you don't understand it and it's not resonating with you. And I think that there's something to be said for that criticism. And I know that I'm if there's a problem of erring too much on the side of not caring about feelings and caring too much about facts, I know that that I have erred in that direction quite a bit. But on the other side, all they have are feelings. All they have is this emotional response, and that's not sustainable because emotions cool. Even hatred cools off. Donald Trump is now a normal part of the political scene. He has defined and dominated the political scene for nearly 10 years now. And after a while, inevitably, people just kind of get used to it, get accustomed to it. Even the people that don't like him. He's just a normal part of the landscape. And that's aside from the fact that he did well in his first term, and so the dire predictions never really came to pass. Even aside from that, he's normal. He's normal. It was easier to get people to panic and to react emotionally in a negative way against something that is not perceived as normal, something that is different. People are afraid of change and all of that, right? It's a cliche, but it's true. Well, now you have something that it would be a change for Trump to not be a part of the political scene. So I think that's part of it. And the bigger problem, the deeper problem on the left is the fracturing and the disarray that they have now. And even something like organizing a protest, a large protest, is difficult to do when everybody is fractured. And they're fractured because what is the Democratic political project at this point? What do they stand for? Can they even answer that? What do they want to achieve? What are their goals? I mean, I know their fundamental goal is to destroy Western civilization. I know that. But they can't say that. So from a public-facing perspective, what are their goals? This is one thing that Trump, one of the things that Trump has always been very good at, is laying out the goals in really clear language. That's why, like, something as simple as build the wall. It's just it's a simple concept that makes it very clear. This is one tangible thing that we want to do, and this is one of our goals. It's a fundamental goal, and that's secure the border, law and order. I mean, these are simple, not to say simplistic, but just simple. These are simple things that need to be done. And so, if anyone asks, well, like, what do conservatives want? What does Trump want? What does the MAGA movement want? You could start talking about it. You could start laying it out, because these things have been clearly, you might not agree with all of it, especially if you're on the left, but you know what those things are. But on the left, they don't have that. And so that's probably their fundamental basic problem that if they don't solve will mean that they'll hurtle even further into irrelevance over the coming years, which means that, I certainly hope they don't solve it. That's what I'm rooting for. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.